Good evening. This meeting of the Robert Mueller Municipal Airport Plan Implementation Advisory Commission is called to order at 6:03 p.m. on Tuesday, October the 11th, 2022. We're meeting at Austin Energy headquarters, and the present today are commissioners in person, are Commissioners Jones, Krivorniak, Sokolic, Neider, Ronsonette, Hilliard, and Jackson. Commissioners, the first item on our agenda is public communication. This is an opportunity for anyone to provide up to 3 minutes of testimony on any issue related to the Mueller development which is not on today's agenda. And no one signed up for public communications today. We'll next move on to approval of the minutes from our September 13th meeting. Commissioners, are there any changes, corrections, or questions about the minutes from that meeting?
Need a motion to accept them?
Yes, we do.
So moved.
There's been a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the September meeting minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are approved. Next, we'll move on to a staff briefing. This is a update on some recent developments regarding the activity around the Mueller Control Tower. Oh, okay. The presentation, the briefing will be provided by Pam Hefner of the City's Economic Development Office. Pam, we look forward to hearing your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, God.
Greetings, PIAC. I wanted to give you a little update on the control tower plaza. As you know, a public plaza has been proposed at the base of the control tower for many years, and there was a lot of design work that was shared with you at a former public meeting, and design work has continued. In 2018, you may recall that the control tower was designated historic, or at least the historic zoning. And in order to move to the next stage, it had to go to the Historic Landmark Commission. Staff in EDD and the landscape architect, as well as Catellus, have been having conversations over several years with staff to get direction on what they would like to see, to make sure that it would be proposals that would be in keeping with their goals for the ability of the control tower. So there was, the Historical Landmark Commission has architectural review committees. This was new to me because I don't think it existed several years ago. And it's comprised of 4 of the commissioners, and so that it meets in a more informal way to give feedback, to make sure that everyone's going to the right direction before it goes to the full Historic Landmark Commission. And 2 of those meetings occurred to get feedback. The goal is to get a certificate of appropriateness. That's the blessing of the Historic Landmark Commission, and basically says that the design that's been proposed would be allowed. And that was granted on October 5th. The Historic Landmark Commission granted that certificate to move forward. So now it can be talked about in a public meeting, since it's an actual possible thing to do. And it has the blessing of the Historic Landmark Commission. And I think Brian's going to be talking about a public meeting. So that was the update. That we're good to go, and now can be, designs can be shown and talked about.
Commissioners, do you have questions from Pam regarding the update on the tower site? Yes, Dave?
Yeah, I was just wondering, you said there was a couple of meetings. Were there actually changes made based off of the feedback, or did they accept the proposals as is? Or?
I mean, it was, I don't know. I didn't participate in I mean, I think there was guidance with city staff along the way. And one of the goals was just to acknowledge the level that previous terminal, where it hit at the tower. And so, I mean, I don't really want to go into all this, but I don't think there was feedback on the way. It was iterative process. There were no big changes. It was checking in with staff and then checking in with the committee, get feedback.
Corky, you have a question?
Thank you. Hi, Pam. Thank you for that. Were any of these meetings public, or was the public invited, or will there be other public meetings?
They were public, and the first one, we didn't actually realize that it was going to be a posted public meeting. And I think a publication, it was kind of new to us because we haven't seen these committee meetings before and didn't realize they were public. And so there wasn't a notice. We thought it was just an informal discussion. And I think people saw a little bit in an online report. Someone may have, since some of the information was posted, we didn't know it was going to be posted either. They saw that. And the second one, I think, was shared, and then this one that was just on the 5th, we did send out a notification of how to attend if you wanted to attend. It ended up being passed by consent, which was surprising to me because there was a presentation ready to go, and staff put it on the consent agenda, and it was passed by consent, and we were very surprised.
Thank you.
Yes, Rick?
Okay, thanks. So I want to clarify here that, so what was reviewed was the proposal for the surrounding, of what's going to go around the tower. Did it be appropriate and not take away from the historicalness of the tower? Is that kind of?
Yes,
Okay.
and yes. I think they cared about how everything interacted with the tower, and they're always concerned about visibility.
Sure, okay. So nothing has been proposed for the actual tower rehab anymore at this point. It's just and this is for historic landmark designation?
It's already been designated,
Okay.
which is why we needed a certificate
Oh, the certificate, okay, got it. Okay.
of appropriateness. So they're saying it's appropriate to do what you've got on your plan.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, other questions for Pam? Well, Pam, thanks for the update, and we're glad to hear that the plans can proceed on as proposed.
Yes, and I think we're going to have a public meeting very soon to be able to share the information more. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. The next item on our agenda will be provided by Catellus. It's our annual update on Catellus's contracting activities with minority and women-owned businesses. Brian?
Just testing the microphone. Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Brian Dolezal, Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Mueller Development on behalf of Catellus and the City of Austin. Unfortunately, Carl Paulson, who is head of our horizontal construction, couldn't be here this evening, so I'm flying a little bit solo here today. But for those of you who have seen this presentation before, it's going to be a little bit old hat, but it's good to kind of remind everyone of what we're doing from a minority and women-owned business contracting standpoint. These are just a couple of pictures of some of the construction that's going on around the community. So just to remind you in terms of some of how this relates to some of the major goals of the community, obviously East Austin revitalization and economic development, and then making sure that we have a diverse and inclusive community as we go forward at Mueller. Beyond those goals, however, we're also thinking about, from a Catellus standpoint, making sure that we want to strive for maximum participation among our MWBE participants. We want to make sure that minority and women-owned businesses are successful at Mueller, continue to work with community stakeholders throughout this process, and then go beyond what the MDA requires in the resolution to work with third parties to be able to participate, and I'll walk you through some of that in just a moment. So just a reminder, Catellus obviously takes the land, purchases the land from the City of Austin, and will either develop it ourselves. In most cases, we're talking about horizontal constructions. We're talking about the infrastructure like utilities, streets, alleyways, etc., parks, the pools, the playscapes, all the amenities within those parks, and then we'll either take down the land to then sell it to the home builders, who will then develop, or to the commercial entities and allow them to develop as well. So when mainly Carl, who's again responsible for our horizontal construction, issues a request for proposal for any number of these infrastructure projects, he identifies a target number he thinks that is reasonable for general contractors to hit with minority and women-owned contractors. Those proposals then include either the MWB information or shows how they attempted to secure minority and women-owned businesses for those contracts. And a lot of the evaluation process goes into how successful they were in that effort. And then Catellus continues to monitor them throughout the history of that particular project. And then this is probably the slide that you probably care the most about. This is the slide that changes usually on a regular basis, and that's specifically the numbers. And just to walk you through them real quickly, because I know they may be a little bit small on the screen. As of the end of May 2022, we had contracted with minority and women-owned businesses for a total of $51.15 million, which is about 24% of all of the contracts. So we're holding pretty steady in that regard. We have now paid out almost all of that to the contractors. There's just a little bit of work that's still going on, and obviously they will be paid as their work is completed. And the number of businesses, we're close to about 100 or so businesses, minority and women businesses who participated in some way in Mueller over the course of the project. And then within that, we should have a quick breakdown. Latinx-owned businesses make up 42% of that total, followed by women-owned businesses at 31%. African-American-owned businesses are at 25%, and then rounding out the list are Asia-Pacific owned businesses at 2%, and Native American-owned businesses at just 0.03%, because there's not that many Native American contractors in the city. I'll tell you the reason why this number hasn't changed a whole lot is because we haven't had a whole lot of contracting done in the past year. We go through cycles where there's periods of time where there's not a lot of construction that's going on or contracting, and we had a lot of construction going on. We will have more contracting, and in fact, to that point, as you've seen from previous presentations, we have 3 more parks that will be starting construction here relatively soon. All three of those will have opportunities for minority aluminum businesses to participate in that construction. And we're talking specifically the Section 11 Park that Janet McCann presented to you a few months ago, the park along Zach Scott that RVI presented at that same meeting, the Control Tower Plaza as well, and then also the Tannehill Creek Trail, which is a partnership with the City of Austin and other entities, but it's my understanding Catellus will be responsible for a lot of the contracting, at least for part of that particular trail. And then in terms of third-party participation, we do encourage the developers who are working on the projects, whether it's the homes or the office buildings or the retail spaces that we are not working on, to secure minority aluminum businesses as well. And just to have a couple examples for you, reported last year, General Marshall Middle School, AISD, they're reporting 27.5%. Their contracting is minority aluminum businesses, which is above their target for the school district. And then Ryan Companies recently reported to us that they're at 10% for minority aluminum businesses, which we're excited to see that as well. And then in terms of outreach, historically, when we get the word out over the course of the project, we have used a number of tools and resources, everything from formal presentations, contractor fairs, individual meetings with particular contractors and helping them through the process of getting certified as a minority or aluminum business with the city. We've done paid advertising in minority publications. But what we've found, and this is even before the pandemic, that with a city that is growing as quickly as we are, with so much construction going on, what the contractors tell us that they don't really have time for a lot of meetings and contractor fairs, et cetera, and they said the best thing that we can do is place our plans and our proposals in the with the U.S. Hispanic Contractors Association, with the Austin Black Contractors Association, et cetera, and that's how the best way for us to get the word out to them and for them to get the word out to those contractors to participate. So that's my quick update on that. And before I move to what we historically do is show a couple aerials and kind of show you some of the progress that's made. I'll pause and see if there's any questions specifically about the minority aluminum business contracting.
Commissioners, questions? Dave?
You might have covered this, but remind me, is there a specific goal that or target you're trying to reach?
No, there's not. And in years past, I think Carl was under the impression that we did have a target in the MDA of 30%, and he was striving towards that. However, we were confusing that, actually, we believe, with another number that's in the Master Development Agreement, and that is a good faith effort to have 30% of the local businesses in Aldrich Street be local, which we have exceeded that extensively. But the MDA essentially just says that we need to make a good faith effort. Since then, the City of Austin, as I understand it, have put in requirements for specific target numbers for other projects, but that was well after the MDA was signed between Catellus and the City of Austin. So we're at 24% now. Hopefully that number goes up a little more for the completion of the project, but it's still a very good number for us to be achieving right now.
Got it. And when you say specific projects, you're talking about projects within Mueller or elsewhere? Or?
Sorry, I don't understand.
You said that there were targets that got placed in after the MDA.
For other projects that the city has partnered with other developers for other projects outside of Miller.
Outside of Miller, okay.
So, for example, Colony Park would have a target, Seahome, other project that the city is involved.
Got it, okay, understood. So it's sort of like a learning thing. Got it. All right, I'm good, thank you.
Kathy?
A couple of these on slide 7 gave actual numbers, like Ryan and the middle school. Do the home builders and other places just not report, or maybe will they give something at the end, or just curious about that?
I don't have that information. We have tried in the past, when I've been involved in these presentations, to try to get some of that information, and they haven't been able to provide the information, or it's taken too long, etc. And unfortunately, I did not get a chance to ask him for this one, but I certainly can follow up on that.
Commissioners, other questions? I did have one question, and this goes back to the target topic, since as you've already explained, that making a good faith effort, it's not covered by some of the targets for later projects. In terms of trying to set an ideal goal, you said Carl kind of sets a target, kind of an internal target each year. That's kind of my interpretation. Does he base that on the history of this particular project, or is it industry trends about what he thinks is viable in the Austin market?
That's a good question, and to clarify, I believe Carl will set a target per project. It's not on an annual basis, it's just on each project, so each park, each, the set of roads that are being built, et cetera. And I'm not sure exactly what he uses as that standard to determine what is kind of a reasonable rate, but I can ask him and I can follow up with you on that.
Yeah, I'd just be curious to see what kind of general criteria he uses. And other than those, the parks you mentioned, are there any other, now that we're getting to the last couple of years, are there any other projects coming up the next couple of years where there might be additional opportunities for businesses to participate on this project?
From an infrastructure standpoint, I think we're actually starting to run out of land to be able to do that. From a third-party standpoint, yes, there will be opportunities for businesses. There's still homes to be built. There's still more commercial entities and commercial areas to be built. So yes, there are opportunities still with those third-party developments within the project.
Commissioners, other questions? Well, thank you for that presentation, and then we're going to move on to the, oh, wait a minute, was there anybody?
Actually, well, I was actually going to show a couple more slides related to this presentation.
Okay.
Just a reminder, historically, we usually use this opportunity to share aerials. And this is maybe a little bit small on the screen or a little bit too dark or too bright, but just know, of course, you can look at this online after the fact. This is the aerial from facing north. You have the Southwest Greenway over here. You've got Wildflower Terrace. You've got the new Southeast Greenway over here facing, like I said, northward. And by comparison, see that some things have developed a little bit more since then. And I'll just kind of point out a couple of things here. And we'll have the next slide. I'll kind of walk you through how it's changed in Aldrich Street, which has been pretty dramatic. But you can see activity now moving forward with the Ryan Company's project around the tower, also Modern Lofts and their southern project here at Tom Mueller and Bergman, which I'll include more details in the next presentation. You'll see that homes are being constructed here in section 11. You'll see the school has made really good progress here. This is again the General Marshall Middle School off of Tilly and Simon. And then you'll see the Southeast Greenway has made progress, including the skate park and on track. So I wanted to kind of show it from this perspective because there's been a lot of southern development on the project recently.
Before you change slides.
Yes.
I know it's not part of Miller, it's actually in Windsor Park, but do you know if Rathgate Village is built out?
I actually don't know the answer to that. I can learn more about it and follow up on that. I know they've got 4, maybe 5 projects in there. Last time I drove through there, I don't recall a whole lot more land that's available.
I think it may be done, but I think some of what is not developed is part of the trail that they're supposed to have. But I was just curious if you happen to know. So, thank you.
I do believe it's part of the conversations that are being had related to the northeast area of Miller as a whole. As I mentioned, Tannehill Trail and some of the trails that are going to be behind the school. I think that there's been some conversations about how that will all connect to future trail related to Rathgate River as well. And I apologize for the angle on this. I couldn't find a comparison image that's trying to kind of show the same way as you kind of see the differences that are going on. So actually, I noted that I'm still working on that. But just to point out a couple of things that's different. Actually, there's quite a few things here. Make sure I get the right button again. You've got Amley Branch Park that has made significant progress as people are moving in. The teachers' retirement system area, which includes the Alpha and now Bravo buildings. You've got the Dell Medical Office Building over here close to Seaton's headquarters, Ascension's headquarters. Now you've got Austin Energy. The Dell Children's Campus is expanded with parking garages as well as new buildings. You've got Emily Ivy, which is now the name of the new project that's under construction. And then you've got Austin Modern Lofts here at the Performing Arts Center that is broken ground and started to go vertical as well. So a lot of progress has been made, not only in the southern part of the community, but also on Alder Street. And again, the next presentation will go into much more detail about each of those projects.
Thank you. Is anyone signed up to provide public testimony on this topic? Thank you, Brian, and since for the audio recording, if you'll just, for the record, reintroduce yourself for the development.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Dolezal, Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Mueller Development on behalf of Catellus and the City of Austin. It's good to be with you this evening. Next presentation, I think, was a request that was made by Commission to get an update on each of the active projects that are going on in Mueller, so that's exactly what we're going to do here this evening. And before we get started, I'll just kind of walk you through a couple of projects that are completed to this point. You probably know about all of these, but for those who may be looking online after the fact, they may want to see some of the updates. We have the Origin Hotel is now completed. It's 200 hotel rooms, plus the courtyard there. The Blue Lazy Restaurant is now open. Jesse Andrews Park has been open for a little while now, including Ocho on top of the restrooms there in the park. You've got the Branch Park Pavilion, which is obviously now home to the Farmers Market, which they're doing exceptionally well. And then the Southeast Greenway with the skate park and the pump track, which you'll see at the end of this presentation. We have a date now for the grand opening for that. I'll share that here in just a little bit. Just to remind you, upon completion, we have some updated numbers. They're slightly updated, I think, from the last time we reported on this because we went through the PUD process that you all were very involved with. And so we increased the number of estimated homes and apartments, and condos, to about 6,900 total upon completion. The infrastructure number has changed just a little bit, about $300 million. We're still obviously focusing on 140 acres, about 20% of all the land for green space, open space parks. And then we've broken down the commercial area into institutional and civic, which includes the Dell Children's, would include places like UT, I believe it in the AISD Performing Arts Center. That's at 2.3 million square feet. About another 2.3 million square feet of office space that, of course, includes things like Austin Energy, which we're in the building here now, Ascension, Seton, Teachers Retirement System, the Shorenstein Project, where Teachers Retirement System, and then Texas Mutual. And then about 750,000 square feet of retail space, which I think has gone up a little bit slightly since we last reported those figures. As I get started, kind of walking through each project, just a reminder that all the dates that we've got on here in terms of completion, our move-in dates are subject to change for any number of reasons, weather being one of them. Although, hopefully we'll have rain someday and we can actually worry about that. So I believe the first request that we had was to kind of give an update about the Section 11 homes. We have a total of 371 homes in this section. Almost exactly 25% of those homes are part of the Affordable Homes Program. A bunch of different home types, everything from Miller houses and standalone yard homes to various types of row homes, some shop homes, etc. And according to our figures, about 27% of this section is complete, and that's based on number of closings as of last month. That's not necessarily, there's still probably some construction beyond that. And you can see here, in most of the, I think in every case here, I tried to include what it was like before when it broke ground, or kind of the early stages of it, and kind of where things stand as of the end of September.
Rick, you had a question?
I do. So do you know where the shop houses would be in that section?
I did know where they were, and I'm afraid that if I tell you, I'm going to make a mistake. I wanted to say they were in kind of this area, but let me confirm that for you. Let me make a note to do that. questions on section 11? Keeping with residential, the Austin Modern Lofts, and I refer to this as the South Project because they don't have a distinguishing name yet between this one and the project they have up at 51st Street and Miller Boulevard. But this broke ground in June of 2021, and they expect the first move-ins to be in the first quarter of 2023. So not too far away. They have just begun sales on this project. Just a reminder, 90 total units, 34 of which are condos, and of those 34, 27 of them are part of the Affordable Homes program. And then we have 56 row homes that are also a part of that project. And a reminder, these are located on the southern end of Miller at Berkman and Tom Miller Street, across from the control tower. And then their other project that they're working on, which is started a little bit later, they broke ground just earlier this year. They anticipate also some move-ins by probably the end of first quarter of 2023. These are a total of 39 units, which 31 will be condos, and there'll also be some shop houses for this project. And a reminder, this is the liner of the parking garage of the Austin ISD Performing Arts Center, located at 51st and Miller Boulevard. So you'll see here that they've gone vertical in the past couple months. Parkside Condos, these are developed by Pearlstone. 200 units, 15% are affordable. They'll have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units included in this community. They'll also have some office spaces on the first floor, as well as about 5,000 square feet of retail space. They broke ground in May 2021, and they anticipate the first move-ins in the Q4 of 2023, so the end of 2023. And you see that they have now made some pretty significant structural progress. This is at the roundabout of Aldrich and Miller Boulevard. You can see kind of that curve that they started creating with their architecture. Ryan Companies broke ground on their apartment community in March 2022. They anticipate the first move-ins early 2024. 345 units, and similar to other apartment communities, 15% will be affordable. They're located also kind of across the street from the Austin Modern Lofts project, with the control tower at Berkman and McCurdy streets. And you see they've gone vertical as well. Emily Branch Park has actually started move-ins. So they broke ground in February 2020. They began moved in. They're in 2 buildings. One is behind the cinema building and the parking garage. Another one has the standalone building. The first move-ins have already begun earlier this summer. Total 406 units. There'll also be about 23,000 square feet of retail in this space. We haven't identified those retailers, but we're working very closely with some retailers, and hopefully we'll be able to announce some new projects soon. As I mentioned before, Ivy is the new project that's under construction at Barbara Jordan and Garcia Street. They broke ground also in January 2022. We had a lot of groundbreakings earlier this year. First move-ins are expected at the end of 2023. Total of 326 units, and again, 15% affordable. And their parking garage has gone vertical at this point. General Marshall Middle School, they began construction in Q3 of 2021. They anticipate construction will be completed in the Q3 of 2023, so well before their August 2023 school opening. Reminder though, about 800 students. I know they're currently working on trying to hire a principal for that school, and then they have a number of decisions to be made as it relates to everything from where the students are going to come from to the mascot and the colors for the school. The teacher retirement system headquarters, we've heard this before under Shorenstein as the Alpha building, and then the Bravo building as well. So again, 2 buildings, each are 6 stories. The total square footage for both buildings is almost 460,000 square feet. The Alpha building will have about 20,000 square feet of retail, and we've recently announced a lot of those retailers that are working on finishing out their space currently. Be about potentially 1,000 employees that will be moving. You may have just recently read in the newspaper that Teachers Retirement System did sell their headquarters downtown. And so they're starting to work on the interior space of the Alpha building, which is here. And if these blinds were open, you actually would be able to see this view currently. Jim Dale is working on their medical office building, and it's almost complete. I think it's supposed to be completed as early as next month. It is 5 stories, 130,000 square feet. I'm not aware of any tenants yet, but I know they're working through a number of deals at the moment. This is located on Philomena between James Wheat and Robert Browning, so across the street from Dell Children's and next to Ascension Seating. And then speaking of Dell Children's, they anticipate this is gathered from news clippings, in November next month, opening the 4th patient wing. It's a 4-story building, 72 more beds. They are going to keep the 4th floor open for future flex space. And of course, the other buildings have opened, a medical office building, parking garages, etc. And we're talking about the 4th patient bed down at kind of the southern end of the project, and as I mentioned, across the street from Ascension Seating's headquarters. That's it in terms of the buildings themselves. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, Brian.
No, go ahead.
I have a question on the Jim Dell Medical Office Building. So there is a separate parking garage structure. Do you know if there are plans to wrap that parking garage structure at least on 1 or 2 sides, or?
I can tell you that yes, there are plans to wrap that parking structure, and hopefully in the next few weeks or months, I'll be able to provide you more details about how that will be wrapped.
Okay, thank you.
But I thought I'd share with you just a couple other updates while we're doing this here this evening. Metro Rapid anticipates that the first service will begin in fall of 2023. And as a reminder here on the right, there will be 2 routes that will serve Mueller, both of them going along Berkman Drive. The stops are located here with the red circles. Barbara Jordan at Simon, and then at Tom Miller. One of the routes is the Pleasant Valley route that will start in Miller and go south, end up at Goodnight Ranch, and eventually when the blue line, the rail line connects along Riverside, you'll be able to connect from Miller to that blue line and eventually up to the airport, the new airport, I should say. And then the Expo route will start at the Expo Center and go through Colony Park, come to Miller, again go down Berkman Drive, and eventually go down to Republic Square in the downtown area with also a connection to UT. And this is an artist rendering of what the Metro Rapid stop might look like at Miller. It's a little more shelter than what we have now. And then just a reminder, you've seen the presentation on the parks, but just kind of wanted to walk you through the timing of things more than anything else. Section 11 Park will start construction this fall and hopefully open by Q4 of 2023. The park near the middle school along Zach Scott will not start until fall of 2023, and that's because the school is using that site as a staging area for the school construction. So that won't open until we get much closer towards the end of the project in Q3 2024. And then we don't have a start date yet for the Tower Plaza, but we do anticipate it'll be towards the end of the project. And as Ms. Hefner had mentioned before, we're starting to publicize the next community meeting for the public plaza for the control tower. And that's going to be on Thursday, October 27th at 6 p.m. It will be an online meeting, similar to the last community meeting that we did. I will, following this meeting, probably tomorrow, send you all an email with a link to that, and feel free to share that with anyone and everyone. We started to share that with the Miller residents. We'll be sharing it with other neighborhood presidents, posting on Nextdoor, a bunch of ways to get the word out about that particular meeting.
Brian? Will there be some public input before a name is chosen for that particular plaza park?
I believe we've actually settled on a name, and we'll probably be announcing it at that meeting. That's our plan right now. I think it's going to be a name that the public is going to be excited about.
Okay.
And then this just kind of shows you all of the projects that we've got going on right now. There's a lot of activity going on at Mueller at the moment. Again, probably a lot difficult to see here on the screen, but when you're online, you'll be able to see where these things are all located.
Yes, Kathy?
I got a notice in the mail about the office building, Miller and Barbara Jordan.
Yes. Shorenstein, which is the developer of the Alpha and Bravo buildings that Teachers Retirement System are going to be located, have the option to build a couple of other office buildings that they're referring to as the Charlie and Delta projects to kind of keep with the theme. I was hoping to get some information to be able to share with you this evening. I just don't have that yet. So as soon as I have that, I will share that with you in terms of the details about that project. That it would be office.
Commissioners, other questions? Yes, Dave?
Could you remind me a little bit, as you were going through all the new residential construction that you guys have been able to extract affordable commitments from the apartment complexes, can you remind me, is there a standard for how long that commitment's for? I guess that's the first question. Is there some kind of standard, or is it like a case-by-case negotiation?
I believe the answer to that is 99 years, which is much further than what the requirement of the MBA is a requirement of a lot of smart housing. I think it's usually, if I remember correctly, 25 or 40 years. I think we're well beyond that. Now, I may be mistaken that the 99 years might be for the tax credit projects, but I'm pretty sure that also applied to the other projects, but I can confirm that for you.
Yeah, that'd be good if we can get an update, especially before next month's meeting.
Or hopefully maybe incorporated into next month's affordable housing presentation.
Commissioners, other questions?
Is there a second part of your question?
Oh, well, I was going to ask, it's not relevant at 99 years, but if it's less than 99 years, let's say it's 15 years or something like that, just whether or not there's any guidance or anything's been, I just kind of wonder at the end of, let's say it's 15 years, at the end of 15 years, all of a sudden, is the person that's been living there for 5 years, does their rent triple or something, or is there any grandfathering, or I just want to make sure that, it's just at an individual level that somebody doesn't get, caught off guard or something with that kind of transition. I realize that's 99 years, it's kind of far out, but
I
less
think
than that.
we can address that process at next month's affordable housing meeting. I'll talk to the team about that.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Other questions?
While you're thinking of any other questions, just last slide here, and I can share this information with you independently of this presentation. We have a number of meetings going on, or not meetings, but events going on this fall. So I thought I'd summarize some of them here. And this doesn't even include some of the plans we have for December. So we have the skate park and pump track. The official grand opening will be on Friday the 17th at 4 p.m. We've got 2 more KUTX Rock the Park on October 21st and on November 11th. We also have 2 movies in the park, both in November, that we're now partnering with the Austin Parks Foundation on those projects. The Mueller Neighborhood Association is doing their Fall Fest event at Branch Park Pavilion on the 22nd. As I mentioned, the 27th is when we'll have the Control Tower Plaza public meeting. There's a ticketed event in the hangar called Uptopia, which is the 2nd year the organizers are doing that, but they moved from Lake Park to Browning Hangar where they have a fenced in area. That's on October 29th. And then, of course, every Sunday is the farmers market. And next month, hopefully, we'll be able to share with you more details about what we have planned for December, including the tower lighting, which we are planning on bringing back, and an Alder Street fair that may be a little bit less, but still planned to be a nice celebration for the tenants in December, the holidays. So a lot going on.
Yes. Ken?
Hey, Brian, thanks. This is a very good update. Is it possible to get this in either a PDF or some form that we could share with our neighborhoods?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, these presentations, I understand it will be posted on the Mueller Commission website, and the link can then be provided from there.
Great.
I know Matthew usually gets them updated,
Yes.
very quickly.
Very quick. Commissioners, other questions regarding this portion of the development update? Yes, Rick?
Is there any chance you'll know the date of the tower lighting event before the 15th of next month? No, this month.
Yes, we do have the date, I just don't have it in front of me, and I will get it to you in the next several days, so you can include it in this.
Thank you.
I believe it's gonna be Tuesday, the 29th. I think it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, but I'll verify that.
Commissioners, other questions? Is anyone signed up to provide public testimony on this topic?
Yes. Ani Colt.
Audie, look forward to your public testimony.
Would you like me to, Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. I wanted to ask a couple questions. I had about 4, but I can only remember 3 at the moment. Maybe by the time I finish the other one will come to mind. I particularly want to speak tonight in terms of the elders in the Mueller neighborhood and addressing the needs of a growing elder population. When baby boomers go through old age, I got to tell you, we're all going to feel it. Because it's as they made the schools too small, because they were a big bulge of people, it's going to be the same thing as when they go through their most elder years. So one of the things I'm curious about, and you may not be able to answer that yet, but elders in Mueller have to get in their car or some kind of vehicle to go to medical offices. Is there going to be anything in the medical office building that's going to attract doctors that serve older people? Or is that going to be mostly targeted towards children because it's by the Children's Hospital?
And your other question?
We have asked Catellus and spoken to Catellus over the last year or so about having a park that's specially designed for seniors to keep them fit. And you say you like the idea, but you've got a lot on your plate, and so I haven't heard anything about that in quite a while, and I'd like to hear about that. And seeing I haven't come up with a third one yet, the fourth one was, I will direct this, but the people at Wildflower Terrace are right on top of that new development, and we've talked about that. Keeping them informed, I could give you an email address to someone you might send this to. They have a weekly meeting, a community meeting, and I think it would be really great for them to be informed. Right at the moment, the people who are facing north are looking at a cement wall for the parking garage, and it'd be really nice if they saw the rendering of what it's going to look like afterwards, because it's a little scary.
Is that everything?
That's what I can remember. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me follow up, Brian. Do we have any information about, obviously we know who the target audience of being served by the Children's Hospital, but is there any other information about any of the other new medical buildings or which medical specialties are going to be operating out of those buildings?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I think to Ms. Colt's assumption that a lot of that may be targeted towards children because it is next to Dell Children's, that would make a logical step from a development standpoint. However, I don't know for sure, and I made a note to follow up with Jim Dale specifically. I have a good relationship with the head of the company there. I can just ask him directly and get an answer for you on that. I wish I had more information related to the senior fitness area. I know it's still an idea that Catellus is very interested in, and I'm hoping that we'll have some more information here in the next month or two to be able to share with you and go forward from there. And then I'm more than happy to share information with Wildflower Terrace and or connect Ryan companies directly to Wildflower Terrace to keep them informed on a regular basis. But again, at least initially, make that connection and provide some information.
And for some of the newer commissioners, that concept about a small park serving older Texans, I think was a concept that was presented to the commission, let's see, a year or so ago, and it was based on a similar project, I think, down in a little town in southeast Texas, I think Lamar, Texas, where it had been tried before, something very similar before, and it was, I think it didn't involve a lot of land, but it was an idea that's been kicked around, and so just wanted to kind of bring everybody, is based on my recollection from that time, but bring everybody up to speed on what that concept was. And important to bring up as we are getting closer, but there's not a lot of parkland left to develop, but so now's a good time for that to be addressed. So just want everybody to be aware. Any other? So that concludes, I believe, all of the questions and testimony on this topic. Thank you for your presentation, Brian. Look forward to the follow-up.
Thanks, everyone.
Commissioners, the next item on our agenda is our 2023 meeting schedule. I think that was provided to us in your packet today. Does anybody have any questions? I was trying to look around for anything that might conflict with a major holiday, and just looking at it doesn't seem to be a problem. Nothing showing up on Veterans Day or something like that. That occasionally has happened. Just Valentine's Day? Well, I don't think that's an official public holiday for the record. I think that's probably all I should say on that. So we'll move along. Any questions, comments, or thoughts about the proposed 2023 meeting schedule? We are, and I do want to point out, and I want to thank the city staff, they were able to get use of this room for all of the meetings next year, and as I've said before to several people, I've always appreciated all of the meeting spaces we've met at, the libraries and recreation centers and what have you, but this is by far the best, and obviously it was designed for public meetings like this, so wanted everybody to be aware of that. So, do we have a motion? Or just making sure, are there any other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve it? Oh, you had a question?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jason.
So it's 10 meetings. Is that dictated by how this committee is put together or something, or is that just how it's worked, or can you provide some information about that?
Sure. It's basically we've always met 10 times a year, and the 2 months that we don't meet, July and December, I think it's also tied to the meeting patterns of city council, and some of it also, I think, also may go back to years ago. If you've lived in Austin a while, right? You remember there was a time when we used to have our city elections in the spring, and so if the new city council members were coming in, in June, then July was not a good time for commissions to meet, because that would be a time you'd have some turnover. So I think that explains the July, the fact that we don't meet in July. And December, I don't think council generally meets, and just in light of all of the other activities thank you for providing some additional update. And it's in our bylaws on top of that. But I think other boards and commissions have a similar meeting pattern. But good question.
Thank you.
Any other questions about our meeting schedule? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion regarding the meeting schedule? Yes, Kathy.
Motion to pass or accept this meeting schedule as written.
Is there a second? There's a second. Any questions? Those in favor of approving the 2023 meeting schedule, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Future agenda items. Let's take up the November meeting. Normally I will ask for suggestions, but I think we've got, unless there is some emergency issue that we absolutely have to address in November that can't wait until January. I think we've probably got our meeting agenda items set for November. One, as we've been talking about for some time, is the affordable housing issue, a broad overview of that, and we expect that to take up a big chunk of the meeting. The other issue that will take up a lot of our time is a proposal that's going to come from our transition work group. They've been meeting recently. They have a proposal. A few of you may have seen it. Their draft proposal, and it's still in draft form, is going to go out to all of the commissioners tomorrow. I think they've also shared it with at least some stakeholders. So over the next couple of weeks, I would assume that we'll get closer to a final document, or a document that they want to present. And we are at this point, we're anticipating that that will be an action item, because there is a requested action at the end of their proposal. So I encourage you to take a good close look at it. Covers a broad range of transition-related issues related to issues of interest and concern for the city. And like I said, it's still in draft, so there'll be opportunities to edit that, tweak that before we come to our November meeting. But did want to give everybody a heads up on that. That's probably those are probably the two biggest issues, I think, based on our last couple of annual internal reviews, the report we sent to City Council. Those were two of the biggest issues, and probably the next couple of years they will be the priority issues for this commission, and to some extent for the project itself. So take a look at that, and we definitely need your feedback. And some of it, there'll be opportunities, of course, to discuss it at the meeting, but it'd be a good idea to provide some feedback before we get to that point. Any other questions or suggestions for future meetings past November? Yes.
Just a question on the feedback. Where is that going to be routed? Since is it going to come back towards the committee? Is it going to the city? I don't know who's sending it out.
I would suggest probably send it to me and send it to you, Ken, as the work group chair.
Okay.
Because we can't, blast it out to everybody, to avoid, open meetings issues. But, yes, Corky.
Since we have council member elections in November,
Yes.
and quite a number are turned out. So we'll have potentially new commission members. And the thought is to be, we might want to think about the January meeting in that light, and maybe February to some extent in terms of educating around some of these issues, the transition for Mueller or out to Catellus. I'm just thinking about some of the steps may have to be put in place to help people get up to speed on some of these more complicated issues.
I think you make a great point, and we may need to, depending on how new people are, the time frame when new people are appointed, we may need to spread it over a couple of months, because the January meeting we may not. And as a reminder, if I remember correctly, if somebody is serving a term that's ending, they can, if the seat hasn't been filled by a new the council member, the incoming council member hasn't filled that seat, the person currently holding it can attend a couple of meetings. I think it's late, 2 or 3. It used to be until
It's a 60-day carryover.
60 days. Thank you. So that would take us through January and February, which will be good, because otherwise you might potentially have quorum issues. So, I wanted to remind you for those that are in that situation. Yes, Rick.
To address Corky's concern, I don't know that I'll be one of them participating for sure, but typically Michael and I, the chair, the vice chair, and staff people have met with incoming.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they can get filled in a little bit without us having to do it at one of these
Sure.
meetings.
I'm aware of that. It's just that it's happening,
Yeah.
and there's a goodly number of possible, I don't know if there will be, because there's several members who are turned out.
Other thoughts, questions about January and February and later meetings? Yes, Dave.
Yeah, and I can't remember if I'm just imagining, but I thought maybe we had a demographer come in, or maybe I'm just imagining that. But with the census data out, it might be interesting to hear from them about what the census says about the neighborhood, and maybe how that compares to any of the kind of measures that we're trying to achieve here. Affordability and other things of that nature. Anyways, that might be an interesting topic for sometime next year.
Thank you, that's a great suggestion, and I don't know, I think the city has a demographer, doesn't it?
It's a former commission member.
And she lives in Miller.
I don't know who they are, but I was gonna say, it's possible that there are people on the city staff who might be very familiar with Mueller.
Well, the
And,
former, I believe the demographer is a resident and a former commission member.
Yeah, so that is a good topic, and we can work that into one of our 2023 meetings. Good suggestion. Any other thoughts for the first couple of meetings in 2023? Well, like I said, we have a little time. Definitely take your vitamins. November should be a very serious meeting, but it's topics that we really want to dig into, and we really need to discuss carefully and think about and possibly take action on. I think before we conclude, I think there are also a couple of administrative issues that the staff wanted to update us on.
Yes, thanks everyone. Matthew Schmidt, City of Austin, Staff Liaison for y'all's commission. Just wanted to update y'all on a couple of administrative items that we had received from the City Clerk's office. One thing is regarding cybersecurity. As y'all are all aware, y'all are supposed to be utilizing y'all's BC email addresses. The City Clerk's office and the city as a whole will be implementing a new password process associated with those, where you will have to update your password every 90 days. It's similar to how city staff has to operate with those, so just be aware that y'all will be getting those notices and regularly having to update passwords related to that. There should be an online or web portal for y'all to update it, so it is not as clunky as having to call CTM to do that anymore. So it should be a little bit easier process. Some other tricks that I had learned that you need to be aware of, and we'll include this, is make sure that it's 14 characters long, and I think it includes a number and a special character. They don't provide that instruction in the little portal, so that's just some of the information that I had learned when I updated my password. And the other item, just as a reminder to everyone for our next meeting, because of election dates, we had to shift our date for our meeting to the third Tuesday of the week of the month. And we were actually not able to secure this building and this room for that meeting next month. It will be over across the street on the Permitting and Development Center off of Wilhelmina Delco Drive. And that's all I got for y'all.
As a reminder, everybody, we did, in case everybody's forgotten, we did meet there this past spring, I think. We had 1 or 2 meetings there early in the year. So if you know people who are interested in attending, you just have to kind of describe to them how to get there. It's not as hard as it looks, but you can't just drive down Airport Boulevard and see it. You have to drive that way. But it's a nice building. It's not quite set up as conveniently as this one, but it'll certainly get the job done. So, like I said, look forward to a very productive meeting in November, and definitely you want to carefully read through the proposal that's coming from the transition work group. Remember, it's still draft, but we definitely want your feedback, and send it directly to the work group chair and to me. And then if there are updates between then and before the meeting, it's possible this may go through a couple of iterations before we get ready for putting together the final agenda for the November meeting. Any other comments that are within the scope of our agenda, of course, that anybody wanted to share? Well, thank you, and is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? Is there any objection? Hearing none, meeting adjourned. Look forward to seeing everybody in early November. Thank you.